Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Coffee with Carlson. Thank you for joining me. Today is already February the 8th. It's almost hard to believe. And the awesome thing about February the 8th is we're only 4 days away from being able to actually complete individual tax returns. What a crazy year last year. This year has started off no different. There is general consensus amongst my peers across the country that there will be no relief on tax filing deadlines like there was last year, that we're all just going to start almost a month later than we normally do. And it's not just that we can't file them. Completing them is kind of difficult right now too, because some of the forms aren't done. And believe it or not, they're still out there debating some tax law changes that could affect everyone in 2020 tax year. So just think if we rushed to completed tax returns and they changed something this week that affected them. So it's very possible. The thing they're targeting right now is taxability of unemployment compensation, and a bill was introduced to not tax up to $10,000 in unemployment compensation. But I digress, and I got started too early. My name is Jeff Carlson, thus the name. Thank you for joining me today. I'm here in beautiful downtown Sebring. I've still got my raincoat on. I guess I could take that off because it's not raining yet, but it does look like it's going to rain. I've also got this 80s looking collar thing going on here, which makes me look like an 80s prep kid. Actually, like Johnny Lawrence from 1984. That's kind of how I look. All right, I wish, right? Wah, wah, wah. Cobra Kai. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you're all enjoying a wonderful hot cup of strangely warm coffee. Special announcement about the farmers market here in downtown Sebring was originally happening Friday and Saturday. And in order to consolidate and make it, hopefully get some more vendors to come in, they're going to just do that from Saturdays now on, not Fridays as well. So hopefully you can make it down there. That's from, I believe, 8 to 12. Dan, you can correct me in the comments below if you want to. If you're up yet, I don't see your truck over there, so I don't see your work yet. All right, guys. Today's topic is a soapbox topic for me. Not necessarily something that directly affects my customers, but it does. In many ways, it will affect you by taxes going up. It will affect you if you're part of the group that's having the benefit. It will affect you mentally anyway if you're part of the group that doesn't get the benefit. But here's the proposal that's had a rough time, and maybe it won't make it through. But as you saw last week, there is no consolidation. There is no reconciliation. There's no unity in Congress right now. It's 50-50 plus tiebreaker, and that's how things look like they're going to be going through, either executive order or 50-50 passing. So let's get past that part and talk about the thing that interests me today. And I'm kind of passionate about this and debate it lots with some of my friends. I have some notes down here, so I might look every now and then. The proposal that's before Congress, they've been talking about this for years, is student loan forgiveness. Student loan forgiveness. And it's an important topic because the current number is up to $50,000. That's a pretty large student loan. Now, some people will say, well, my kid goes to a school that costs $60,000 a year, or I went to a school that cost $60,000 a year and we had to borrow money to go there. But you didn't have to borrow money to go there. So you didn't have to borrow money to go to a $60,000 a year school. I started out, I'm going to talk about myself for just a minute. I started out in college, my senior year of high school, didn't really have all this dual enrollment, IB stuff back then. My senior year of high school, I was taking full-time classes at South Florida State College right here in Sebring. At the time, it was South Florida Junior College. I took 6 classes a semester while I was there, and I worked every day at this business, as a matter of fact, when my parents had opened it, and I was there doing data entry and copying and things like that at the time. So not only I lived at home, I went to the community college, and I worked part-time. And after I got done with that year, I went on to University of South Florida. University of South Florida, when I went there, my parents helped me out with some money. I had an uncle that helped me out, paying me to do some work for him while I was over there. We won't talk about that. That's a whole nother story. But I had it made, set up in an apartment. My brother and I lived together. And some of you have heard this story before, but I actually had it made so well that I got kicked out of USF for my grades. And at that point in time, my family said, now go figure it out. We're not going to do it anymore. So I had to go back to community college and not start over, but start that career over again. I had to get a job. I worked full time. I worked a job 8 to 5 every day and took 5 or 6 classes a semester. Every night I was at school taking classes and studying later than that. And I took out some student loans at that time to get through. It was about $10,000, and those were paid off. I'm so old now. I think that at the time you had to pay those off in 10 years, but paid those off, got through. But the point is that I worked full time while I went to college. My company helped pay for it. I paid for it. I paid my living expenses. I paid for the college, and I got that done. But I started out going to community college and got my associate's degree there. It was very inexpensive. You can do it right here at home. Most places are within driving distance of. Even DeSoto and Hardee have extensions of South Florida State College, so you can get that there. So there's really no reason, in my opinion, to take out and go to a school that costs $50,000 a year, unless you just want to. And if you want to, that's your prerogative. Please go forth and have fun. That's the thing I love about America. It's a free country. But if you choose to do that, the rest of the country shouldn't have to pay for you doing that. And that's kind of where the rub comes out for me. So I've got a few talking points, and this is probably going to be shorter than usual, but I have a few talking points, and I'm just going to run down them in no particular order. I'm going to try to read my notes a little bit. I don't know what that says. Okay. So the first thing that this came up on the campaign trail last year, Elizabeth Warren was then a candidate for president, and she was asked, well, what about my daughter and I? I worked 2 jobs, and my daughter worked to help pay for her to go to college and pay off the loans and the tuition that she paid for. And he said, is there going to be any help for me? And she kind of laughed and said, no help for you. You did the right thing. You're not going to get any assistance. And I understand that there's a point in time where it has to go, but there are people that went to college with me at the same time that may still have student loans that they've refinanced or still sitting out there. So those of us that took care of them, now these people are going to get a bonus of $50,000. So a lot of people have a rub with that they went through and paid them off and don't get that opportunity. So typically, if you go out and take a credit card or a car loan or something like that, and you decide you don't want to pay it back for whatever reason, you're going to get a 1099-C, cancellation of debt, and you're going to pay income tax on that money. So this proposal, I would guess, I haven't read it in depth, but I would guess that the $50,000 is going to come back to each individual tax-free. So they're going to get a $50,000 in income. They're not going to pay any tax on it, and it's going to go to pay student loans that they could have made a different decision to pay off themselves. So I have a problem with that. It's forgiveness of debt. If you're not going to work and pay it off, you ought to pay tax on it just like the rest of us did, because we had to pay tax on our earnings in order to be able to pay the loan off and pay them with after-tax dollars. Now I'm going to get into some of the things that I think ought to happen in this student loan program. And I'll tell you that short story before I get into the last 3 things that I wanted to cover, that my kids are in college right. Well, one's still in college, one's out of college. But when they were in college, their friends were from Florida. They got bright futures, so their college tuition was pretty much paid for. Some of them their living expenses were being paid by their parents, and their tuition, books, everything was covered for them, so they had no need to take out student loans. But they chose to take them out anyway. One story is that they used the student loan money every year. They'd get a couple $1,000s in student loan money and spent that money over the summer traveling Europe or other places. That's not what student loan money is for. Student loan money is for school. It's to pay for you to be able to get an education to better yourself and make a better income and better the life for you and your family. That's what it's for. It's not for, the other story was buying fancy clothes, buying fancy perfumes. And the stories are crazy. $300 pair of shoes, $400 thing of cologne, all paid for with student loan money. That's ridiculous and has to be taken care of. So in light of that, I want to put forth a couple of things that I think would really help the problem overall. First is you don't have to go to a $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year school in order to get an education, a good education. Because as an employer, I don't care what school you went to. I care about the hard work that you're willing to put in and the experience and knowledge that you have. It doesn't matter to me if you went to Harvard or South Florida State College. It doesn't make a difference to me. Your GPA doesn't make a difference to me. What matters to me is that you're going to show me that you can do the job, that you have the knowledge, skill, and ability, and work hard to get it done. So you don't have to do that. There are cheaper routes to get a college. You can get a 4-year college degree right here at South Florida State College. You can go back to this channel last year, and you can see that I had Tammy Cullens from the Board of Trustees. I had Jan Shoup from the Highlands County School Board. We were talking about all these opportunities that you have. So there's no excuse to go to a $50,000 a year school that you have to borrow money to go to. So that should be the first question. Do you have to borrow the money in order to go to this college? If that's the case, then maybe there should be some sort of accountability in that regard that says that you understand that you could get this education at a lower rate, but since you're going to do that, there will be no forgiveness or assistance with you later on because you're fully aware and taking responsibility by signing this loan agreement, which is pretty much what everyone that signs the loan agreement does now. So you should understand that you're going to have to pay it back, and no one else is going to pay it back for you if you choose to borrow that money to go to a school that's expensive for whatever reason. If you really want to go there, I'm okay with that. Go there, borrow the money. Don't expect someone else to take care of it and pay it off later. Pay it off yourself. The second thing that they really need to have is some sort of a mandatory work study program. So if you don't have, and I think everyone ought to do this, by the way, whether or not your parents pay for it, whether or not you've got prepaid, whether or not you have scholarships, whatever it is, I think every single student should have to work while they're in college. You have to do something. Maybe not the first 2 years, but definitely toward the end. You need to do that so that when you get out of, for multiple reasons, 1, to help to pay your living expenses, 2, to help to pay for your college, and 3, so that you get out of college and you have experience that you can tout to potential employers like me or anyone else. So mandatory work study programs are great. There are some colleges, I went to one in Boston for a year that had a quarter system where you were in school a quarter, 2 quarters, and then you took off a quarter and worked. You didn't take off a quarter, you worked. And then you went back. So at the end of the college, it took 5 years, which is a year longer than it normally does. But when you ended with about 2 years worth of work experience. So mandatory work program should be there, I think, for everyone. In some countries that have free college, people tout as free college tuition, they also have things like mandatory service in the military. So yeah, you get out of high school, you go spend 2 years in the military, and then you can get free college. And guess what? You can do that in the United States too, if you choose to do that. But in those countries, it's mandatory. Here you have the freedom to choose. That's what's so great. One of the things that's so great about America. The second thing is the plan needs to be accountable. Accountable is a common term used in accounting and tax purposes, where that if I have employees that are I'm reimbursing them for expenses, in order for those expenses to be deductible by me and tax-free to them, it has to be accountable, meaning that they have to provide me with documentation that says, these are the miles that I drove my car for your business last week, the exact miles for that week, and I'll reimburse you and deduct them. I think college ought to be the same way. I think you don't just get a check from the college or from the bank that says, hey, go have a good time with this money. I think you really need to account for the money, account for how you spend it, account for how you plan to spend it. And finally, I'll jump off my soapbox, and I'll try not to do this for at least a month. The last thing I wanted to point out here is that college degrees related, you could go to college and get a degree in whatever you want. No questions asked, get a degree in whatever you want. From gender studies to accounting, military strategy, whatever it's going to be. If you're going to, I think that if you're going to sign a loan agreement, it's commensurate, it's the responsibility of you, the lender, and the college to look at the amount of money you're going to be spending to get that degree at whatever college you're at. If you're at South Florida State College getting a deal on your education, or if you're at Harvard, you need to really look at the amount of debt you're taking on versus the amount of money you're going to get paid when you get out. Or if there's even a job market for whatever it is you're getting a degree in when you get out, and where you're going to go to get that. So if you go to college and get a 4-year degree in English literature, what are you going to do with it afterwards? How much are you going to get paid, and how much are you going to borrow? So if you go to Harvard and take $100,000 worth of student loans, when you get out, you're going to be making $25,000 a year. I'm okay with that if you choose to do it, but take the responsibility to look at that ahead of time. And I think it should be on the bank or the lender in this case, the school and the student to sit down and determine whether or not it's realistic for you to take on $100,000 worth of student loan debt when you're going to be working for the Peace Corps maybe for $10,000 or $15,000 a year afterwards. If that doesn't bother you, then don't complain to anybody after the fact. All right, I've been on my soapbox for about 12 minutes, and we're a little bit over the normal time. I actually thought I was going to go short this time. I hope you enjoyed my my soapbox, and I'll try to stay off of it. Next time, I think I'm going to bring an actual soapbox just so you can check it out. I hope you gain something from this. Maybe personal responsibility is something that's important across all facets of our lives, and I think this particular area is one that has gotten out of control. And I think personal responsibility really needs to come back into the fold in this regard. And I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you're having a fantastic morning. I'm going to go have another cup of nice, warm, strangely brewed coffee and try and get some pre-work done on some tax returns this week. I love having you here. I love doing this show. I hope you do too. If you have some ideas for future topics, please put a message down in the comments and maybe we'll pull those up. I think next week I have a topic that came up last week with a customer. All right, check me out at carlsonaccounting.com. Call us anytime at 863-382-4141. You can set up an appointment to talk to me right on the website. You can also call us anytime to make an appointment to see us. Thank you very much. God bless and have a fantastic day, everyone.